Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Not to be confused with Happy Tuesday, as we just saw each other the other day. Welcome back to Arise, and I am just so excited to keep going with this Hebrew calendar. I've had quite a few people reach out to me who have wanted to have an understanding of the Hebrew calendar, and they just, haven't found a source or resource or some place to look into it, but they've known that there was something in it. So I've had so many people who've been really interested by the first couple of videos that I've done on the Hebrew calendar. So I'm really, really looking forward to going through the rest of the calendar together. Just a reminder that if this is the first time that you're tuning in to this specific limited series on the mysteries of the Jewish calendar, there is an introductory video that has already been posted and another video since then, and that has give you an introduction to the reasons why I feel that God is calling us to have a look at the Hebrew calendar. So it's just a good idea, if you're not sure why I'm doing this, to just go and have a look at the introductory video just to understand where I'm coming from, and also to go and watch the other videos that I've done so far on the previous months. So it's like there's so much information, and it's actually impossible to share it all in one 25-minute video recording. But hopefully there will be an opportunity at a later stage to do a more in-depth study of the Hebrew calendar. Depending on how many people are interested in it and how many people want to know more, I'm really considering doing that, because there is so much. There's just so much that God says through the Hebrew months. It's just amazing, honestly. So please, again, feel free to give me a shout out if you want to know anything, or you have any questions, or you're confused about anything, whatever it is. If you don't agree on something, if if something concerns you or worries you, please feel free to reach out to me. And all my details are on the screen. And as you can see, I have a website, a Facebook page, Instagram, the whole lot. You can reach me on a myriad of different ways, so don't hold back. So today we are going to look at the month of Adar, and I'm going to play you the way it is supposed to be pronounced. Listen to this.
Adar, Hebrew.
There we go. Adar. So that is the way you pronounce it, the month of Adar. And what is incredible about this month is that it is the 12th month of the biblical calendar. So we are ending off the biblical calendar, and it is the 6th month of the civil calendar. And again, if this is the first time you're watching and you don't know the difference between the two, please go back and watch the intro, and you'll understand what happens, why I reference two different calendars. But so this is the last month of the biblical calendar. It is the end of this biblical year. And that is always exciting, because with every ending comes an incredible beginning. The word Adar actually means strength, but the month of Adar is known as the month of joy. And I just think that is just an incredible way to look at it. That's endings aren't always something to be grieved. Sometimes endings are to be celebrated, because it gives you a chance to step into the new of something else. So the Adar, the word Adar means strength, but the month is also known as the month of joy. It is the month of Naphtali. So Naphtali was one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And as we've said before, each month coincides or is connected to one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is the month of Naphtali. And the name Naphtali means a time of celebration. And it's a time of celebration that your curse is overturned. That is definitely a reason for joy. Now, I just wanted to read you the prophecies that were spoken over Naphtali as one of the 12 tribes of Israel by Moses and by Jacob. So in Genesis 49, you'll find the whole of Genesis 49. I reference it quite a lot in these videos, because the whole of Genesis 49 is basically Jacob prophesying over his sons, what things will look like going forward. And in Genesis 49, verse 21, you'll see that it says that Naphtali is a hind let loose, which yields lovely fawns. Now, that doesn't really seem to mean anything, does it? It's kind of, you think, okay, what does that actually mean? But if you go and look that same verse up in the complete Jewish Bible, it says, Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns or that says beautiful words. And another Hebrew translation of the scriptures says that he gives words of elegance. So this month is also about the words that you speak. It is also about words of elegance. It's about words of encouragement and positive words. And then again, if you go to Deuteronomy 33, which is another chapter that I reference quite frequently, because in this chapter, Moses is prophesying over the 12 tribes of Israel before they enter the promised land. So remember, Moses couldn't go with them, so he's prophesying over them. And he says in verse 23, of Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full of the blessing of the Lord, possess the Sea of Galilee and its warm, sunny climate like the south. Now, the interesting part of that is that the territory that was actually given to Naphtali, the upper portion of the territory that was given to Naphtali, was actually swamp. No one could live there. It was uninhabitable. And so what Moses said in that prophetic word didn't really seem to be, it wasn't something that was apparent right then and there. However, when the Jewish people returned to Palestine in 1940, they drained the swamp and they actually settled in that land. And today that land is thriving. It's the piece of land that was years ago prophesied to go to Naphtali is actually a thriving space. So the prophecy that Moses said right back in Deuteronomy actually came to pass after 1940, which is just, again, something that we all need to hang on to, that God's promises and prophecies, they sometimes take a long time, but they do come through. And that, again, just speaks to me of legacy and of taking this month as we end off one biblical year, preparing to step into a new biblical year, actually to take this month and also have a look back over the biblical year that you've been through and determine what legacy you're taking with you into the new year and what legacy are you leaving for your children and your children's children and the world as a whole in the future. What is it that God is calling you to walk in that will produce a legacy that will actually benefit generations after you? So the constellation that goes with Naphtali, and again, remember, we are talking astronomy here, not astrology. So we're not getting hung up on horoscopes and things. We are just talking about the way that the stars were in the sky over that time. And the constellation over this time, which over the month of Adar, which runs from the 13th of February to the 13th of March, 2021, is Pisces. And Pisces is obviously, the symbol of Pisces is a fish. And while I was having a look at just, the symbol, the Pisces symbol, and the fact that it is attached to this month of Adar and all of those things, God really started speaking to me about 3 of the times in the New Testament where fish and Jesus are sort of, in the same story. And the one you will all remember is the time when the Jewish people were trying to trip Jesus up, and they were saying to him, this here is a coin, and, who do we pay taxes to, etc. And where he said, render to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. And then he said to Peter to go down to the seashore and catch a fish and open the fish's mouth, and the money that was necessary for the taxes would be in the fish's mouth. And that is actually what happened. And then the other story is obviously the one we all know, the multiplication of the loaves and fish, when the boy brought the loaves and the fish, and Jesus multiplied them and fed thousands of people. And then the third one is the one where the disciples had been fishing all night, and Jesus appeared on the seashore, and he said, have you caught any fish? And they didn't immediately know it was him. And then he said to them, throw your nets on the other side. And Peter said, we've been fishing all night. We haven't caught a thing. It's pointless. And he said, throw your nets on the other side. And they were obedient, and they threw their nets on the other side and hauled up more fish than their boat could actually cope with. So God was saying to me that it is a time it is not only a time of provision, but it is also a time of multiplication. So the symbol of the fish speaks not only of his provision, but also of his multiplication in this season, in this month of joy, in this month of Naphtali, in this time of celebration where your curse is overturned. Now, you might be wondering about the curse is overturned bit, and we're going to have a look at that now, because that's something that happened in the Old Testament that we will chat about. But the one thing that I also actually just thought about was, so the month of Adar runs from mid-Feb to mid-March, 13 Feb to 13 March, and many, many businesses have their financial year end at the end of February. And it's a time to look back on the financial year that has passed. It's a time to look ahead and budget for the financial year that is to come. And I honestly believe that right now, God is saying to you in this month of Adar, at this time, that it is a month of provision and multiplication. And it is also a month to throw your nets on the other side. So if you have a business and your business has not taken off, or it's really been struggling, or you're just wondering especially if it's something that you feel God has called you to, but it's just not doing what it's supposed to do. And then what we get to this point where we just feel so despondent, and where we question whether we've heard God, and we wonder whether we're doing the right thing. And, we tend to go back and back and back and say, Lord, what is it? Like, what am I doing wrong? Etc., etc. But I feel as though he's really saying in this time, as you cross over into a new financial year, if this is your financial year ending at the end of February 2021, as you cross over into a new financial year, if things have not looked the way you have thought that they should look, to stand in faith for provision, to stand in faith for multiplication, but also to throw your net on the other side of the boat. In other words, if you have tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried some more, and it still hasn't worked for you, try again. Try one more time. Don't be like the disciples and say, I've been doing this for how long? I've been trying this for how long? Nothing's working. It's not going to work. I've been fishing all night. There are no fish. Be like they were eventually, where they actually were obedient, and they threw the net on the other side of the boat and caught more than they had ever bargained for. So I really feel that that is a prophetic word for any of you who are in business, who have businesses, who are business owners, or anything like that, entrepreneurs, people getting into business, to just understand that this is a month of multiplication and provision. And it is also a month of persistence, where you throw your net on the other side of the boat and you try one more time with Jesus and see what he can do. So I think that is really, really important as a prophetic message for this month. Then the part about the curse being overturned is that this is also, so the 13th of Adar, which is the 25th of February, is the feast of Esther. And the 14th of Adar, which is the 26th of February, is Purim. And the reason why they celebrate those 2 days is because the 13th was the day that Haman decreed to be the day that the Jewish people would be wiped out. That was the day, you remember, he rolled the dice, and that was the day that came up. So that was the declaration, the king's declaration, that went out and said that basically the Jewish people would be wiped out on that day. And then Esther did what Esther was born to do, and she stood up before the king, as it says in Esther 4:14, which we've spoken about before. I released a word last year about that it's time for the Isaiahs and the Esthers to arise, or the Esthers and Isaiahs to arise. And it is always, you are always in a space where this moment could be your Esther 4:14 moment. So you might have already had that moment of like, this is why I was born. This is why God put me on this earth. And that's amazing. And sometimes that shifts and changes over time. And then you have another Esther 4:14 moment, which is now, okay, now I know this is why God put me here. But basically, it's being able to track those moments and actually being able to recognize when you're having one of those moments. And Esther was a queen, but she was a Hebrew girl who was chosen by the king. If you read the story of Esther, it's an incredible story, but she was set there by God for such a time as that, so that she could be the instrument or the vessel or the tool that he used to overturn the curse. So Haman had placed this curse on the Israelites, on the Jewish people. He had decreed that the 13th of Adar was the day that they would be wiped out. And Esther was the tool or the vehicle that God used to actually prevent that from happening. And for every person watching this right now, there is something that God has for you to step into that could, Esther prevented a whole nation from being wiped out. In one of my previous videos, I spoke about the Hebrew midwives that didn't obey Pharaoh and didn't kill the Israelite boys that were born. They prevented a whole generation of male Israelites, Jewish people, from being slaughtered. Esther prevented a whole nation from being slaughtered. They were going to wipe Jewish people out from one end of the kingdom to the other end. Because she stood up for such a time as this, because she didn't value her life over the lives of her people. And, if you read the book of Esther, you'll see that Mordecai said to her, if you don't step up now, basically, I'm paraphrasing, if you don't step up now, God will use someone else to be the deliverer. And God does, that's what he does. He will, if you don't step into everything that he has for you, often there will be someone else that he will put in that place to be able to do that. Sorry. Water is needed. I'm still struggling with this word cough. But don't you want to be the person that he uses? And what if it's something where there isn't somebody else for that? Because I still also believe that we each have something that we bring to the earth that nobody else could actually bring. So the 13th of Adar is the Feast of Esther, which is they celebrate that Esther stood between them and annihilation. And then the 14th of Adar is Purim. And that is when they celebrate the fact that the curse was overturned, that the curse was overturned to such a degree that it was Haman and his sons and family that actually got annihilated. Sorry. And that it wasn't the Israelites. And what's very interesting as well about this is that Purim is 1 month before Passover, exactly a month before Passover. So it's just that the timing of, God's timing in terms of how he works these things and how he does these things and the way he puts these things in place is just so incredible. So Adar is the month where we celebrate the story of Esther. We celebrate Purim. We celebrate that the Jewish people were not annihilated. We celebrate that the curse was overturned. And as such, the curse can be overturned in our lives as well. Oh. Sorry. So the letter of the Hebrew alphabet that corresponds with the month of Adar, because as we know, each month corresponds with one of the 12 tribes of Israel and then a letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And the letter of the Hebrew alphabet that corresponds with Adar is the letter Kuf, K-U-F, Kuf. And what that symbolizes is removing the mask and entering into joy. Now, if you read the book of Esther again, you will see that Esther didn't let anybody know that she was Jewish. And it was Mordecai told her to keep it a secret. They knew that she needed to, keep it from everybody around her because her life could have been at stake if anyone had known. So one of the reasons that Haman felt so able to go ahead with his attack on the Jewish people was he had no idea that Queen Esther was actually Jewish. It was only when she went before the king and pleaded for the lives of her people did she actually tell him that she was Jewish. So it's almost in a way where she removed the mask and she reflected who she actually was. And she stood proud and said, I am Jewish, and these are my people, and I have come to intercede for them. And so the month of Adar, being part of the symbolic the symbolic picture of Kuf is a month where we remove the masks, where we look over, because it's the last month of the biblical year, we look back at the year that we've come through. We see where we've picked up things, where we've picked up masks or picked up ways that we kind of present ourselves to the world or present ourselves to people that maybe don't always reflect exactly who we are. Because even though kind of a trendy word out there right now is authenticity, people struggle to be authentic and they struggle to be vulnerable. But actually, what this is saying to you is that when you're authentic, when you remove the masks, when you present yourself as who God told you are, or as who God has said you are, or as who God has intended you to be. So when you step out in the identity that you have in God, and you strip away all the other masks and veils and everything else, you actually enter into joy. You actually enter into the fullness of life, because when you stop pretending or feeling like you have to be somebody else, you actually just get to be you. And that's just amazing, and it's so liberating and so freeing. And I mean, for me in my life, I found I haven't had a huge issue with getting older, particularly because I found that when I turned 40, I found turning 40 hugely liberating. It was like suddenly I thought, wow, I don't care so much what people think, And when I turned 50, it was like, okay, I don't actually worry about anything anymore, I mean, and obviously that's not 100% true. We're all human and we occasionally do worry what people think. But what I'm saying is I just find it quite liberating, because you get older and you suddenly realize that all the things you worried about when you were younger, and the opinions of people, and, what people think you should look like and how people think you should dress and all of that sort of thing. As you get older, you just realize that none of that is important. And actually being who God created you to be, that is all that really matters. And so when you step into that identity, into the identity of just being who God created you to be, that is what brings this huge, incredible, amazing revelation of being able to drop the masks and just enter into joy. So, and that requires strength, which is also in the name. Adar means strength. So that requires strength. So I just bless you. I bless you with the prophecy of Naphtali. I bless you with a month of joy and celebration where your curse will be overturned. I bless you with a month of multiplication, provision, and persistence to throw the nets on the other side if necessary. I bless you with a month of removing the veils, casting away the masks, and stepping out into your identity of who you actually are. I decree and declare over you that you will learn this month, if you haven't learned yet, that you will experience your Esther 4:14 moment where you will realize what God has put you on this earth for. I prophesy over you that you carry not only your own destiny and the destiny of your children and your generations to come in your hand, but you carry the destiny of nations within you. That as a daughter of the Most High King, as a daughter of God, as an Esther, you carry the destiny of nations within you, and the power to impact the destiny of nations, because you do that with God. And I just prophesy over you that you will experience that revelation from the Lord as to the destinies that you carry within you, that you can be an Esther too. Be it people groups, be it cultures, be it institutions, organizations, businesses, nations. And I bless you. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business person, a business owner, a CEO, anything, a shareholder of a company, anything where you have a vested stake in a company doing well, I bless you with the symbol of the multiplication and provision of the fish in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, that you will end this financial year, that you will celebrate the ending of this financial year, and then look with excitement at the beginning of the next financial year. We don't always celebrate the endings. We rush through them and we dive into the beginning. But Adar is a month to celebrate the endings, to celebrate that you've come to an end of something and you're stepping into something new. And next month, which is the month of Nisan, which is the first month of the new biblical year, is just, there is so much around that. So please join me in a month's time. When I release the video on the month of Nisan. It is an incredible month as well, but enjoy this last month. Close down what needs to be closed down and look ahead to where you're stepping into in the new biblical year. So bless you, and I shall see you next Thursday for my normal prophetic teachings, and in a month's time for my next episode of the Mysteries of the Jewish Calendar. Love you all. See you soon. Bye.